Hi there, welcome to the Rebecca Zahau case. Today we're focusing in on what was found on her phone, whether that be messages, drafts, the notepad, the digital one, her thoughts leading up to her death and any backstory behind it. And what was found may shock you. It may change the perspective and the landscape for how things really were for Rebecca. And it doesn't all boil down to Max's accident when falling over the banister. There could be a bit more of a deep-rooted history to Rebecca and possible struggles. Whether that justifies and links to the cause of death, or it adds to an ongoing list of darkness which ultimately boiled over just after Max's accident, the voicemail upon the news of his health getting worse and likely death, putting Rebecca in a vulnerable place. That if someone was in that state of mind, anyone else about could take advantage of that, and it could backfire in some way. Join me today as we take a deeper look. I'm going to show you the quotes of her messages and notepad from the phone, and then a bit later I'm going to analyse it a little bit more and share my thoughts on it, the psychological analysis. So for those that are watching, welcome, and if you're here during the live premiere, share your live reactions in the chat box on the right side of the screen, and at any point or time, if you have your own thoughts or theories, meanings behind her text, be sure to drop a comment down below. If you are interested in this case and want to follow up on any previous videos you've missed out on, don't worry. The full playlist is available, top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. But right now, we need to get into it. And first of all, we look at a timeline of some added names that played a role within the case leading up to her death, because from what I mentioned previously, due to what happened and maybe Rebecca at some point feeling guilt or responsibility, such as hearing that voicemail. Right, leading up to that, she did play quite a role in moving about from place to place, picking up people from the airport, dropping them off, such as at the hospital. Maybe Rebecca did that to try and regain, which she thought she may have lost, was some form of respect, and to feel busy as a distraction and feel useful. Some driving forces behind it to just help out, because she feels like she owes people like a debt which can't be paid off because of Max's accident. But when adding on with her thoughts and feelings before and after, it tells a different story. Like, it could link back further back. Let me show you the timeline first, and then the phone. Focusing in on the timeline of airport pickups and the diners. Zoom in just to make it a little bit easier for you. Monday, 11th of July, the day of Max's fall. Afternoon, Rebecca picked up Nina Romano. Nina is the sister to Dina. Dina is the mother to Max. So Nina had a son herself, and that was at the San Diego airport. It makes sense, family and family of family coming on down to check in on Max. But don't you think it adds a level of pressure on Rebecca? Because in some ways it's like one against many. There are more family members and people orientated around Max biologically, by blood, etc. And then there is the stepmother, Rebecca, who's not related, who isn't the real mother. She's kind of on the outside. So if each worried family member in relation to Max, I can imagine the pressure and that bad feeling building up inside, having to see all these different faces, familiar ones, new faces, hear about their pain, their anguish, their sadness, their worry, and then Rebecca silently feeling that guilt building and adding up, even though it wasn't really her fault. It can happen, that psychological event. In regard to the evening, Rebecca dropped Nina and her son at the hospital to be with Max, and then dropped Nina's luggage at Dina Shaknai's home. So Rebecca is kind of busy lugging things about, moving around, might take a toll on her own health, psychologically speaking. It might make her tired, especially with dealing with any background stress, the stress of the situation with Max and dealing with those new faces. It can be overwhelming. Who knows the toll that it's taking on the person? And this is the thing. An individual may take it upon themselves to help out and put other people's needs first before their own, whilst they are suffering themselves in their own ways and dealing with all kinds of flashbacks and memories and processing it all. That's kind of on pause, on hold, whilst Rebecca is considering other people's needs. And that delay in forgoing oneself and being selfless, it can bubble under and make it more difficult for the silent sufferer, such as Rebecca. Moving on. Tuesday, 12th of July, day before Rebecca's death, at 4 p.m, Rebecca went back to the airport to drop off her sister, Zena, who was 14 years of age at the time, and picked up Jonah's brother, Adam Shacknai, who had just flown in from Memphis. There's a lot of going back and forth, isn't there? 6 p.m, Rebecca and Adam picked up Jonah and a mutual friend named Howard from the hospital. I've never heard of Howard's name before. That's the first. I'm guessing it's a guy. So this Howard character, at any point did they go to Spreckles' mansion later, leading up to Rebecca's death, I wonder? As for the evening, the dinner, Rebecca, Adam, Jonah and Howard went to dinner at the fish market. Post-dinner, after dropping Howard at the airport and visiting Max at the hospital, Rebecca and Adam returned to the mansion. Jonah remained at a nearby Ronald McDonald house. Right. A little bit more information there. So after dinner, Rebecca did pay Max a visit at the hospital. Did that final visit tip her over the edge? Did it add any security or safety knowing that she was there by his side, checking in on him? Conditions didn't worsen at the time, so it was okay to go back home, sleep it off. But unknown to her, the conditions were to increase and get worse, hence the voice message at 12:50 p.m, past midnight, going into the next morning, the 13th. Now, what was Adam thinking and feeling at the time when at that hospital too, after having dinner? Doesn't it just seem a bit weird, though, how you've got Rebecca, Adam, Jonah and some friend called Howard all going out to dinner, and then the biological mother, Dina, is at the hospital with Max alone. It just doesn't seem right, leaving the biological mother behind. I know someone's got to be there for Max, of course, but could it have been handled any differently? What was the rush for this dinner, this get-together? Was it a means of catching up on less time? Was it a means of a distraction, turning a negative into a positive event, despite everything going on? This is a photo of the fish market restaurant, and there is a big boat on the side, like a warship almost. So inside there, obviously this is a more modern photo from Google Earth, but you can imagine back in 2011, Rebecca in this place, probably one of the last few known public places she was in before her death. One of the last few meals that she had before her death. But she wouldn't have known that at the time, right? Because as for the cause of death, as for the lack of injuries internally from what's associated with the rope and the balcony, doesn't quite add up. The gagging, restraining, being bound behind, that seems unusual. The sailor, rope and knot, something that she probably wouldn't be capable of. And whilst we've got a boat off to the side, if you can see off screen, you've got Adam, who was a tugboat, worked on a tugboat, used to tying knots, tying up boats. He would have more experience, and he just so happens to be present at the house. And at that house, you had that specialised rope. Where did that come from exactly? Would Adam have taken it with him, regardless of what was going to be done? Or was it just in the house at the time? It just seems like an unusual piece to have. But what was the atmosphere like when present there? They might have been having dinner, but was it all happy and chatty exactly? Well, based on Adam's account of the evening, the atmosphere, Adam stated that during dinner at the fish market, Rebecca appeared quiet and somber, which he attributed to the stress of Max's accident. That's interesting that, because the autopsy report also said that Rebecca didn't show much signs of distress and more so didn't show much sign of taking accountability or responsibility, blaming herself. She was quite okay and upbeat when it came to the night 21:30 p.m. On the 12th, when communicating with Zena, the sister who earlier was taken to the airport, and Rebecca was on the phone saying about plans for the future, meeting up with family, getting together, having some good times, making memories. So it seems like we're dealing with either two different story narratives which clash with each other, or they both exist, but we were actually dealing with two different characters, inner personalities of Rebecca, comparing what she was going through in the presence of some people and how she was internally feeling genuinely behind a mask, which may have shown at this fish market, and Adam picked up on it. Now, if Adam picked up on that she was distressed, did he ever try to comfort her? Like, when they got back to the house, Spreckles mansion, was there any forms of trying to reach out to get her to talk, open up, how's she feeling? Did it escalate in such a way which, like, Rebecca's family was pushing in terms of a form of physical forced intimacy, which backfired, and Rebecca tried defending herself, and the stress on top of everything else brought on the period and the blood? It's worth considering. But if the atmosphere with Rebecca was quiet and somber, what was Jonah doing, the boyfriend? Because you'd think, if Adam on the sideline can pick up on it, surely the boyfriend would be able to know what's wrong. If you've been with someone and you're in a relationship with an individual for a certain length of time, you should come to learn and know about the behaviour of the other half, your girlfriend, the boyfriend, unless the other person keeps it under wraps and hides it very well because they don't want to make a scene. They don't want to bring anyone else down around them, so they suffer in silence, meaning the other half just wouldn't know. But surely, if you've known someone long enough through the years, you would have got closer, you would have had those conversations, those deep talks, so that when something is wrong or off with the other half, that you'd pick up on it and check how they're doing, or pull them aside and comfort them. But at this dinner place, the fish market, it was Adam that picked up on it. As for Jonah, didn't really mention it. Interesting. And, for Rebecca to be the way she was, then going back to the mansion with Adam, should she have been around her actual boyfriend for the comfort and warmth to help each other through, not for it to just be one-sided? Because sometimes during difficult times and events, if the other half, the partner, ends up distancing themselves or playing the cold treatment, the silent treatment on the other half, that could be quite emotionally draining and hurtful, whether it's done on purpose or done a form of disassociation when dealing with their own stresses. It can create a bit of a dark environment and add to the pressures. Now, in regard to the return home, after dropping Jonah at the hospital, Adam and Rebecca arrived back at the mansion around 10 p.m. The last interaction, Adam claimed they had a brief, normal conversation. He told police that Rebecca seemed distracted, but not overtly that or hysterical. So if it was along the lines of that, it hadn't kicked in yet, maybe the voice message, it's what drove her over the edge and impacted her. But just the fact that Rebecca was or appeared distracted shows that there were other things going on in her mind, whether that applies to Max or other things, and that could link to the messages on her phone. As for retiring for the night, Adam stated he went to the guest house to sleep shortly after arrival, took a sleeping pill, and was asleep by 10:30 p.m. He claimed he did not see or hear her again until he found her the next morning at 6:45, 6:48 in the morning. I believe he woke up at 6:30 and then went outside and then saw her. So you can get the idea. I've made it dark this just to portray what it could look like at night time. Coming back, evening, going into the mansion. Rebecca is by herself. Sometimes being by yourself is fine, other times not. Sometimes being in a big, empty house in a way, without that warmth, comfort, familiarity, can be quite a lonely place. You might have a mansion, you might be staying somewhere really nice, but if you're lacking that real comfort and what you really value, which could be the presence of a family member, a friend, or a partner, no matter where you are, in a big house, a fancy place, it can leave the person feeling empty and alone. Was Rebecca alone with her thoughts at the time? And it spiraled. Did she choose that option? Did she not know what to do? Or was she okay at the time? And then later things went downhill. But maybe that phone call with the sister Zena was done to maintain a level of normalcy and stability, to hear a familiar voice, to not feel as alone, communicate in some way, even if it's across the phone digitally. A level of arm's length distance, but still being connected and tethered to someone you care about, and vice versa. Maybe that was helping Rebecca at the time and kept her going. Who knows if Rebecca wanted Zena to stay at the house for those days, but didn't want to be selfish or felt it would be, so letting her go, but needing family members at an important time like that. Who knows? But the guest house is back there, you can see. Back there when Adam got there, took that sleeping tablet. He didn't get a voice message call himself. It was only Rebecca from Jonah. So I wonder why Jonah didn't reach out to Adam. Was there a breakdown in communication, or was there an expectation that Rebecca was going to tell Adam anyway, so Jonah didn't need to repeat it? Now, was Jonah aware that Adam was going to use the guest house? I wonder. Because when you think of it, a guest house sounds more like when you got strangers staying the night, new faces, new people you've just met. When it's family or friends, people that you've known for some time, would they be staying in the guest house? I mean, if you've got a mansion with enough rooms, wouldn't they be staying in the mansion area? Wouldn't that make more sense? Unless on this occasion, because Rebecca was by herself and the mood state that she was in, was it agreed upon that it's best for Adam to go to the guest house to give her space that she needed, or the other way around? Was there any protesting, any secret wants or needs to be in the mansion and not the guest house? Did Rebecca want to be completely alone at the time? As for investigators, who recovered several undated digital notes, and that's important, that undated could mean at the time of Max's accident leading up to her death, but it could also mean in the past as well, weeks before, months before, and the longer it dates back to, the longer she's been struggling in some way. And you could say, well, how do we know she really is struggling? Because I took a quick glimpse at those supposed messages and it does stand out, and we'll get to it in a second. But yeah, says about which they argued indicated a state of personal struggle, emotional distress. These notes touched on themes of isolation, relationship tension, family conflict, dissatisfaction with her life. However, the interpretation of these notes is disputed, whilst investigators used them to support a self-deletion finding. Zahau's family contested this, pointing out the lack of timestamps and highlighting her last message. The lack of timestamps. Look, you gotta take it into consideration. Okay, cause of death in terms of how she was found tied, very dodgy, sounds like foul play. If she was simply found over the balcony and that was it, then you could lean it more towards self-inflicted. So I do understand that. But for Rebecca's family to contest, is there a level of emotional biasness and resistance, whether that be by their religion or culture of it's unspoken for a person of that, connection to be removing themselves from this world. But if that's what Rebecca truly did, based on their culture, it would bring shame or disappointment on the family, and they choose not to believe in that, or they choose not to even consider it in the first place because they think it's unspeakable, and Rebecca just wouldn't do that. But how well do you know someone exactly? There's different ways of looking at it. And as for removal from this earth, maybe Rebecca didn't do it directly herself, but could it have been a co-joint one, a form of assistance? The only way out is this, and another individual gaslighting her into doing it and assisting in some way. Like assisting, forcing coercion into that's the only way out for Rebecca to ease her suffering when it shouldn't be. And it's been staged as truly self-inflicted without the presence or, without the persuasion by someone else encouraging her to do it. You get what I'm saying? This could get really, really deep. Beside the contesting and the lack of timestamps, in quotes, I have to be strong for Jonah as evidence of a different mindset. Yeah, I have to be strong for Jonah. That is what Rebecca supposedly said to Zena, the sister, on call. So it showed a level of determination and strength and resilience. But anyone, well, not anyone, but humans can put on a shield and a face, especially around other people, and make promises which they mean or wish to keep, but mentally and physically, they may not be able to hold that end of the bargain. And extreme stress and additional conflict and anxiety and anything else in between can take over and consume. Those previous promises now become mountains of weights and too hard to complete or follow through with. The moment you make a promise or say that you're going to do something, you may be committed to it or feel like you've got to follow it through. But if you don't follow it through, or whilst you're trying to, it could add a great extra layer of pressure and weight, that extra pressure to perform, the pressure to be present, the pressure to be strong for someone else when they themselves are struggling and crumbling inside, and they feel that because they put themselves in that role, that strong, supportive role, that they can't grieve, they can't struggle, they can't fold themselves, because if they do, they're failing their role, their position, they feel like they're breaking their promise and their commitment and vow to someone that they love. It creates an unbearable weight and pressure to carry in life. Maybe that didn't help Rebecca. Let's move on. The investigation into 2011 revealed several notes and drafted messages on her Samsung Focus mobile. The fact that it says drafted, that they weren't actually sent, and other drafted notes means it was, in the moment, not sending, but saving them, passing thoughts and feelings which were written down but not deleted. Interesting how they weren't deleted, but when it came to Rebecca listening to that voicemail on the day, 12:50 in the morning, she ended up deleting that immediately. So some things she deletes, other things she keeps on to, keeps a hold of. Drafted notes. Investigators found several unsent messages and notes believed it's been indicated a troubled and unhappy state of mind. Feelings of hopelessness. One note stated, if I'm not thinking, I am crying. Relationship and financial stress. Another message read, no amount of money is worth what I'm going through. Internal turmoil. Zahau described her inability to sleep and a racing mind. I find myself not being able to sleep for the first time in my entire life. Now, when I close my eyes, my mind begins to race, thinking and brewing over many situations and trying to come up with a solution of some sort. Many situations implies it may not just be Max's accident, but other ongoing problems. So, this could date back any time. Domestic conflict. She wrote about being talked to like I'm a worthless person by kids who are spoiled, referring to her boyfriend Jonah Shacknai's older children. She also mentioned feeling disrespected by his 2 ex-wives. I'm guessing one of which is Dina. Not too sure about the other person. And as well, internal conflict. One note questioned if she was a coward to face the truth, or if she would be content without children. There's a little bit more follow-up on here. Despair over her future. A note questioned her future, asking, am I just too much of a coward to face the truth that I'm settling for the hope of a few happy years, which may never even come? Am I pretending that I'll be content without ever having a child? Isolation. One entry stated, it's my own fault. I have allowed myself to be completely cut off from my own life. My life does not exist. And the final text message by Zahau, which her family cites as evidence, she was not out to be strong for Jonah. So it wasn't on the voicemail message thing, it was a text, but nevertheless it was which family came across. So look, you see Rebecca here, you see that face, those expressions, and maybe that's how she looked at times even leading up to her death. But the outside, the exterior of someone can be greatly different to what they're like on the inside. Whether that be around family members, if it be in the workplace, a smile like that can be a coping mechanism. Some people say happy depression, a functional state of performing, pretending to be okay when they're really not. Not feeling the ability to be able to open up because it's just not the right place, the right time, or around the right people. And then when there is the right place, time, and people, it might feel too much because of the questions that can come from it. And then the fear of worrying people and putting others through panic and stress, so it's easier to deal with it all alone. Is that what Rebecca's inner state of mind was? An invisible internal battle in which only she knew about it. I believe she was about 32 or 33 years of age. So round about a 33, 32-year-old woman who has been in a relationship previously and it didn't end up working out, breaking up, then finding a new relationship which may have been good or may have not been. And she shared privately in her notes that she was trying to be content, trying to convince herself things would be okay and get better. Well, if they haven't got better yet, would they later? A 33-year-old woman who's trying to remain hopeful, strong, to be strong for other people around, to keep on going and fighting for whatever reason, but inside they are collapsing and they're sinking. What could a person like that do? You know? And if used to tie in with the culture, the religion, the gender, the expectations, whether that be from family of hers or others, having to portray a certain self and professional presence and appearance, keeping it up. But that's the thing, keeping it up and wearing a mask can be emotionally draining. Whether it be working daily or just trying to be busy, and like with her, Rebecca, going to the airport back and forth, picking different people up, dropping heavy luggage off, whilst dealing with her own demons, if there were any. And demons don't have to be really dark and evil. It can just be intrusive thoughts and feelings and doubts and worry and concern, which is trying to sway them in a direction which may not be healthy, such as keeping quiet, not making a scene, getting on with it, and much more. So a happy face on the outside, maybe chatty, maybe talkative, but maybe deep down within, that 32, 33-year-old woman just wanted to sit down, to shut the world out, shut everything out, and to finally feel normal and have pure silence without any worry of the present, the past, and the future. Just to be able to stand or sit still and maybe share that with the boyfriend, Jonah. Yeah, that wasn't possible. Was it ever possible? That's the other consideration. That was a message on the door. She saved him. Can you save her? It adds a bit more weight, doesn't it? She may have saved Max, but what Rebecca was going through herself, and maybe based on her previous notes, which are outdated, which could, link back to before her death, before Max, that she was struggling, and whether she be the one to write this in third person, disassociating, or it was another person as a means of foul play, which would be very questionable, which make it clear that her DNA wasn't on the brushes, the paintbrush, despite paint being on her, which is weird. Beside all of that, if she's been struggling for quite some time, but she's never reached out for help, or she didn't know how to get help, maybe deep down she was hoping someone would reach in, dig deep down, and pull it out of that black hole, that quicksand. But this is the thing, sometimes in life, a friend, a partner, a loved one may be struggling inside, but keep to themselves, keep it a secret, hide it very well, because they don't want to cause a scene, they don't want any reactions, any trouble. They feel it's best keeping it, tucked away and trying to pretend it's not there. But then secretly at the same time, a deep hidden need at that point and later, they actually want another person, the other half, the other partner, to reach in and help them, catch them, support them. But it's one of those things where the one suffering knows that they've not told the other person, but they still hope that the other half can help them. It's a double-edged sword. The only way the other half could help if they did pick up on patterns and trends and they studied, the person, like if they studied Rebecca really well and body language, behaviour, cues, and having that sharp mindset and that emotional intelligence, you'd be able to pick up on when things are wrong, when they go quiet, when they're not as active, when they don't say as many words, they don't call as much, they don't reach out as much, they pull away, they seem distant, they're staring into space, not quite there with it, and so on. But with what's going on with Max at the time and people being busy rushing about, and even before that, Jonah's a businessman, busy, business. Was there enough time for Rebecca? You've got to take all this in mind. Final message call logs. Family points to other phone data to argue she was making plans for the future, which would be considered a positive. Last outgoing text. Her final sent message reportedly read, "I have to be strong for Jonah." Unanswered incoming text at 10:48 p.m. Nina Romano, twin sister of Jonah's ex-wife Dina, sent a text asking to stop by and talk about Max's accident. Rebecca did not reply. That was probably added stress. When a person is struggling or they need to isolate, they need to hide away in the bunker just to regain their mind and thoughts and peace. When there's the presence of other people that come knocking on by and show up, that can be added stress, whether it be a liked individual, a loved one, or a stranger. To them, it's like, I can't be bothered dealing with you right now. I just want to be alone. That's how it could be for Rebecca at the time. I believe Nina did go round to the house as well and was knocking on the door, but there was no answer. But that time was, I believe, 11:30 p.m. So it was before Rebecca's death. It was before the voice message that came through. So Rebecca still would have been present and alive, but she chose not to answer the door. Clearly, Rebecca wanted to be alone and didn't want to be around Nina or Dina or any of those people because maybe the darkness, the pressure, the fear, the worry of, why do you want to talk about Max? This is where the finger pointing and the blaming is done. Maybe Rebecca doesn't handle conflict that well, or she doesn't like arguments. Rebecca, as a 32, 33-year-old woman that would have had experience through life in different ways, with her roles, with her jobs, her performance, and dealing with different people and clients and colleagues. Maybe there were stresses and arguments and falling outs in the past on a smaller scale, and when already tense and stressed, maybe Rebecca just doesn't handle or want to deal with arguments because it's not that nice. It's worth considering. What else do we have? Final family call. Spoke with her sister Mary for 40 minutes between 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Mary and Zena must be different people. To confirm another sister had arrived home safely and to okay, right. Another sister, probably being Zena. and to discuss future plans, including the father's 80th birthday. Right, so there's some positive ideas up ahead. Medical follow-up, a call from an urgent care centre at 7:09 p.m. was logged regarding an appointment for her younger sister. Urgent care centre, logged. Right. Logged by who exactly? Was this implying that, 7:09 p.m. Young sister, which is probably Zena, if that's the case, 14 years of age. That before or after the airport? And there's the house itself, Spreckles Mansion. Conflicting perspectives, the normalcy argument. The Zahau family used Adam's statement that she was normal or distracted to argue against the ending on one's life. They questioned how someone could go from a calm conversation at 10 p.m. to a violent, intricate ending of oneself by 1 a.m. Well, things can change because of that voicemail. Hospital call. Adam testified that he was unaware of the 12:50 voicemail from his brother Jonah until the investigation began. Maintained that he slept through. Key testimony. During the 2018 wrongful death trial, Adam's version of events was heavily scrutinised. To help me scream, the defence pointed out that if Adam was in the guest house, which is very close to the main house, he should have heard the screams reported by the neighbour, Marcia Alexander. But the time of those screams, would that have been the time of when Rebecca had died? I think it was 11:30 or so, or round about then. I think the screams were before the voicemail. So if it was, Rebecca still would have been alive in order to listen to the voicemail, right? So the screams shouldn't have mattered. And as well, if Adam had taken a sleeping pill which knocked him out, would you expect him to hear the screams? Physical evidence. Expert witnesses for the family argued that Adam's DNA was found on the shaving knife used to cut Rebecca down, and that his footprints matched those found on the balcony, though the defence argued these were from his efforts to save her. Why? Well, hold on a minute. Why would his footprints be on the balcony when he didn't need to go up there? He used a table outside to reach up and cut her down, not go up to the bedroom and balcony. The footprint on the balcony was supposedly by a police guy that accidentally left a print behind, that's all. And as for the DNA found on the knife, well, no, it was mentioned in the autopsy that Adam's DNA wasn't found on the knife and it wasn't found on Rebecca, despite doing the I forgot what you call it now, resuscitation and CPR, that's it. So, where did his DNA actually go? Unusual. The dark side of the house, how it could have looked. Well, there is no evidence that Rebecca Zahau ever officially initiated a breakup with Jonah Shacknai. Her sister, Mary Zahau Luna, has stated that Rebecca was seriously considering ending or putting a hold on the relationship with Jonah in the months before her death. So there was already dissatisfaction. And that's something to consider. Reasons for considering a breakup. Primary source of tension, relationship was not with Jonah, but more so the children of his and the demands of their lifestyle. Turbulent relationship with teenagers. Jonah's 2 teenage children from the first marriage reportedly resented Rebecca. The friction was so significant that Jonah later admitted it was very tough to manage. Role as a glorified nanny. Though she was the girlfriend of a millionaire, her sister described her actual role as a glorified nanny. Rebecca had quit her job as an ophthalmic technician to manage the children's heavy schedules, which left her feeling frustrated, as though she had put her own life on hold. So now it's time for me to give my thoughts on the situation. As said, they are undated, so it could stem back from close to that time of Max's accident, or it could be much further back, like a month or so before, like how it suggested about Rebecca considering ending the relationship or walking away from it out of dissatisfaction and other issues and poor treatment by the hands of others, not directly by Jonah, but the others, the older children from Jonah. So that in itself, what she was considering in walking away, some of the quotes from her notepad or drafted text would link back to that time, weeks, month before. at least a month of dissatisfaction, feeling unhappy in a relationship, in a certain environment. It shows, or at least it suggests, that Rebecca was struggling in some ways more than others. As for Max, that may have been a turning point, which turned everything upside down, and then the voice message being worse. But if a partner isn't happy to begin with before an event, just imagine what it's going to be like when there is added stress and problems. It could send them over the edge, or it could spark more outrage if there was additional factors of where they may have issues or not get on well or disrespected by other family members, and she feels like the outsider within it all. So there's that. First of all, the bit about not thinking I'm crying. So it's interesting that I think one way of interpreting it would be when Rebecca says, when I'm not thinking, I am crying, a double-edged sword. When she is thinking, she is worrying. When she doesn't think, or she's too exhausted to think because it uses up a lot of energy overthinking, all she can do is just cry. It's like when a person is really busy or trying to be busy to escape and run from certain feelings within, but at the cost of being drained and exhausted in the process and not really enjoying what one is doing despite trying to run away from the noise. When they do finally stop, not because they want to, but because they've got no choice. Biologically, the body, the mind has reached a burnout stage. So they've got to stay still, recover, recuperate, rest. But in that period of silence, then dealing with the emotions, the overwhelm, the unresolved, delayed feelings which have been pushed under the rug. For Rebecca, that could be the case. Now, mentioned that Rebecca had work in the past of a high role, medical, etc., and being in charge as well. I think it was mentioned she was a manager of a pharmacy at some point too. So with all that being in mind, she had a position, a place, a purpose, a level of professionalism, and being quite focused on that job. And depending on the situation, the culture, and the background, some people may work harder than others or overwork themselves in unhealthy ways because they feel they have to, they need to, for the sake of pleasing their family, their parents, not wanting to be a letdown, strict environments, strict upbringing, almost being turned into a robot, successful but a robot that may lack emotion or just lack that ability to be able to connect with others because of always working. Was that the situation for Rebecca? Because if that's what she was known to do, or at least just be a professional and work really hard, whilst that is a good trait to have when it comes to the possibilities of a relationship, it's trying to balance that. And with Rebecca quitting her job to almost like be some kind of glorified nanny and not an actual wife, or be seen as that, or to not be an actual mother, even if it's not biological, just seen as a nanny, a caretaker here and there, picking up people, dropping people off at the airport. It feels like a massive demotion from where she once was in a job and a role, high end, to now being like a bag handler for someone else. Was it a demand? Was it a request? Maybe not. Was it self-inflicted? Possibly. We'll get more into that later to explain why. But just to bring it back to the aspect of when she is thinking, she is likely struggling. And when she can't think because she's exhausted, she is crying from the sadness of the situation. So even though at the time of Max's accident she wasn't working, she was going about from place to place, picking people up from the airport, then dropping them off at the hospital, and vice versa after that. So by doing it to play a role, to feel important, to have a purpose, to feel like they've got to repay a debt that was never there, but internally it was because of neglect of Max, or at least that's how they may internally blame themselves, but may never outwardly show it. Some people don't outwardly show it because then it seems like true acceptance of the problem, the situation, and it would only lead to more backlash by other people about, but then find a reason to then pin the blame on Rebecca, so she's the punching bag and the scapegoat for it all. But is that fair on Rebecca? No. so she may choose to keep it quiet but suffer within. Overthinking can be a situation. Said she didn't have any psychological issues, didn't have OCD, didn't have any of that, but a person can still overthink or dwell on moments, whether that be present or more the past, things being unfulfilled or unmet, request, needs and wants emotionally, physically may not be there. So there could be levels of dissatisfaction, levels of worry, levels of concern, levels of uncertainty, not knowing what is to come the next day and onwards. The age that she is, 32, 33, does she want to settle down? Does she want to have a busy life? Does she want to work full on? Does she want a work-life family balance? Does she want to grow with someone and heal with a person? Or does she want to be completely alone for whatever reason? So many different routes and outlooks, but for her, did she feel trapped? Did she not know what to do? Did she feel it would be disrespectful or a form of betrayal if she did put her foot down and put her own needs and wants first? So with dealing with Max, dealing with the past and any unresolved trouble, it can pile on top of one another and accumulate. And of course, depending on the date of that message or note of not thinking means they're crying, and vice versa the other way around. When they're not crying, they're thinking. It does make you wonder, this could be a bit more longer term and other issues beside Max. Now, if Max hadn't had his accident, would Rebecca still be struggling onwards? Would there have been a way out, or would it have felt dark and negative? Who knows? The next quote, "No amount of money is worth what I'm going through." That implies that whether she's directly receiving money or she's in the presence of money, it's just not worth it. That money can't buy people at times happiness, that not always money can't buy happiness in a relationship if the emotional needs and the deep connections aren't there to begin with, you know? Rebecca had her own past, her own life, her own jobs and experiences of a respectable nature. So did Jonah himself. So you'd think when they meet together, would they have the same values? Maybe not. Jonah, businessman, making money. Rebecca, good job, possibly a good salary, but doing it for other reasons, as in helping others, managing others, and doing it out of pride and making a family proud. So they come from different backgrounds, maybe, with different approaches to their jobs, their work. But as for salary, whilst there still is an imbalance, they're receiving a respectable amount back. So when two people come together as a couple, when two minds collide, you'd think they would become a power couple in some way or another. That doesn't seem to be the case here. Businessman meeting with a former pharmacy manager and much more. Do they connect? You think they would, for them to stay with one another for a certain length of time, for a few years or so, boyfriend, girlfriend. But in regard to Rebecca not being happy, as we acknowledged just a bit earlier on, and also mentioning that regardless of money, rich, really rich, it's not worth what she's going through. Whatever she's going through outweighs the weight, the physical weight, the monetary value, and the psychological nature of it all. Now, because that's not dated, is Rebecca referring to Max's accident as an unbearable weight and a struggle, which, despite being in a mansion, a vacation place, and despite Jonah earning all the money or lots of money and her not having to do much, or she can just relax or do what she likes in some way, it's not a good trade-off because she has her own issues, her own struggles. And kind of on the sideline where it could tie in with a person that may be busy, may be working, doesn't mean to say they're happy. They may have a job, they may have certain responsibilities and roles, and they may be busy looking out for friends and family and relatives and all that. Doesn't mean to say they're happy. They might be doing it all because they feel obliged to repay an invisible debt from the past, to have a form of guilt and suppression, which they may not explain to the current people about or the other half. So to an outsider looking in at a person like that in that state, they just seem functional, they seem fine, they seem successful, they've got all their stuff in place and plan, organised, successful. They must be doing really well. But despite the monetary success or the role and purpose success, or just the aspect of being busy, and that's seen or perceived as successful, what's the value and the internal health of the person? Not the wealth of the physical money made, but the wealth of a person's own psychological health and physical health. That could be at an all-time low, which they may not show or let on to people about. So there is a disconnect. They could feel like they're ignored, or they're not valued or appreciated for what they really want, for what their needs really need seen, and all of that. For Rebecca, who's walked away from a job and looking after the kids, that can have a certain value, but also a feeling of loss, of losing her identity, her purpose in life, her area, and what she's good at or knows of, and what she's being subjected to or put to now is feeling lesser. The roles feeling unequal, not feeling adequate enough, or being able to compare to Jonah, who is a millionaire and more. As she feels maybe less and not on the same wavelength in different ways, possibly. But, you know, if you're just looking at it really quick without all the knowledge, you see Rebecca with Jonah, lots of money, big house, everything should be fine and perfect, but it's not always the case. There can still be underlying problems and struggles in some way or another. Moving on, the next one. First time in my entire life, Rebecca said. The inability to sleep, and that with a racing mind when she tries closing her eyes. Could that explain why Rebecca saw and listened to that voice message immediately when it came to the 13th at 12:50 a.m. past midnight, early hours of the morning? It makes you think, if she couldn't sleep because things were on her mind and worrying about the news of Max, not knowing what's going to come the next day, the uncertainty, replaying it in her mind as in the accident, what could have been done, what should have been done, where she failed or where she thinks she failed, and anything else in the background too. Feeling that she may have failed herself, lost herself in quitting a job, removing certain roles and areas from her life, and then putting all her focus and time into the children, the kids of Jonah, and then when Max has his accident, Rebecca feeling like she's even failed that on top of everything else, feeling like she's failed everywhere and she's to blame for everything in life. It can lead to that self-blame and that self-hatred, even if it is irrational thoughts. So there's a lot on the mind, quite heavy, not taking any medication, not taking anything like that to help ease. She's dealing a bit raw, almost cold turkey, and that can be quite difficult. Struggling to sleep, not being able to sleep has its own issues as well. Added stress, added anxiety, more tense, more strain on the brain, more fatigue as well. Not being able to sleep because of worry, not having enough sleep and being too tired. Being too tired to sleep, but also not able to sleep because of all the worry. It's a very vicious cycle and can have a deep, profound effect on a person's psychological and physical health. For Rebecca, whether that be just in the moment on the 13th, unable to sleep, hence why she was able to listen into that voice message and call immediately, or if she meant that it's happened previous. There was no date associated, but you could assume it's to do with Max's accident. A shocking, hard-hitting event like that took a toll on Rebecca, and it's the first time she wasn't able to sleep because it's the first time she lost control or felt that she failed, truly. With her background in care and looking out for people, and her values, feeling like she's finally underperformed after a long life of high performance and working and studying and getting to a place where she wanted to be or felt that she needed to be, and maybe partially what her family wanted her to do. Different ways of looking at it. So if it's possible that Rebecca had struggled with sleep, and this dates back to before Max's accident, you can imagine she would have experienced the same issues with Max's accident on the 13th, the days before, not being able to sleep. And if she's by herself in a cold bed, no comfort, no warmth, no reassurance or stability, having to deal with it all alone, which can be hard in a way. If it was before, what other factors would be causing Rebecca to not sleep for the first time and have a racing mind? what else is that bad which causes for her mind to be preoccupied? I don't know. Based on what Adam had said about being, at the fish bar, dinner time, at night, and she seemed somber, quiet, and then back at the house, she seemed preoccupied, distracted. Well, that could all tie in with when she went to bed later, not being able to sleep, preoccupied, knowing that she needs sleep, but the mind is too active and busy, and noise is hard to shut off. It's not possible for her on that occasion. If that's the very first time it's happened to her, it's had a profound effect. Then the voice message and mail, back-to-back hard-hitting events, could have driven them to intense struggles in a way. But for the family of Rebecca to say, well, how can Adam say she was okay at one point and then later she may have lost it? This is the thing. When Adam may have said it, such as at 10 p.m., well, hours later is when the voice message was sent and heard by Rebecca. Hours apart from being okay or trying to stay strong following for the next day, to then that unexpected news of what's happened to Max. A person can make promises, a person can stand strong and do a motivational speech, and all of that could be for nothing or be lost minutes later if something unexpected and really shocking and profound happened, which had an impact on that person. So they had to retract or go against what they said because they just can't handle it. Something unexpected took over. Rebecca Zahau, in her place, she may have had hopes and dreams and wishes and suggested it with family members and about being strong for Jonah for the sake of the future and life. All sounds positive and resilient and hopeful. But all it takes is 1 second, one moment for history to change, for emotions and feelings to change. Even if Rebecca didn't properly sleep, the moment Rebecca went her own way, retreated to her bedroom to try and sleep, supposedly, if she had flashbacks, triggers, intrusive thoughts, the voice message which triggered an internal psychological shutdown response or a panic, things can change. When a person appears one way, then goes to sleep, they wake up feeling completely different. For worse, for wear, or in a really severe crisis, who knows? Was that the case with Rebecca? Dealing with ongoing stress and struggles, then dealing with a compound of more and more, and then that voice message was the cherry on the top which broke her. And if she couldn't sleep at that time as well, she didn't have time to recuperate, regather. When a person struggles or has a moment or a period in a dark place, a downfall, if they didn't get enough time to recover from that and recuperate, if they have another one or there's more news, more compounding issues and struggles, because they didn't have enough time to recover from the last one, the next, encounter can be more severe and longer lasting. If Rebecca ever found herself in a place like that and not getting the chance in between to breathe and feel normal, the length of time it takes to recover from each one can accumulate with time, and the effects and the feelings from it can be more intensified as well, whether she knows about it or not. Considering her position and place in life and roles, helping others, working, being in a higher position, people come to her for help or direction, not the other way around. Like when you get doctors, nurses, they care, treat everyone else, but when it comes to themselves, some, maybe the most stubborn, worst patients, even though they should know how everything works, the tools, the equipment, what to expect next, the procedures, they're not operating on themselves, they're not operating on someone else. Another person's doing it for them. The power dynamics, the positions and roles have changed, so psychologically that kind of a bit of a stubborn effect on that person that may not be cooperative or be an awkward patient because they're so used to treating and not being treated. And it's like any service out there, a person of a certain job and role that may do a lot for others and give a lot, create a lot, make other people feel better, look better. When it comes to themselves, they may either neglect themselves, their own needs, by putting everyone else's needs before theirs, or that when it does finally come to them being given something and it's reciprocated, they don't know how to accept it, like a gift or a present or a gesture. They're so used to being the roles being one way, and when it's flipped onto them, they don't know how to feel or act. Did Rebecca get to that point? She didn't see the need to get help or reach out in any way because it was either not noticeable or it was so quick and in the moment. Underlying signs not known of or thought about or picked up on. Feeling that because of her role or her position where she's got to be strong for other people, she can't get help or she can't reach out or she can't say that she's struggling, because if she feels like she has to be the strong one within it all, her role, her position, status, whatever, she may feel like if she opens up or shows a level of vulnerability, it means that Rebecca lets everyone down. And if she lets on that she is struggling, then she'll be perceived as weak and not of much use, and feels like she's failing everyone despite the promise that she made to herself or to family. So it can create like a trapped cycle, feeling stuck, feeling like you got to follow through with something, even though you may not physically or mentally be able to or right in the mind to do so, but you still do it regardless because you feel like you've got to stay true to your words. But that can have impacts as well, and wear and tear. Did Rebecca feel that she was in that state in a way, and that voice message felt she couldn't do it anymore? So she was vulnerable. Whether she reached out to Adam and Adam took advantage or retaliated, right? It could be the case. The other thing to mention, thinking of many situations and solutions. That could tie in, of course, with the racing mind and inability to sleep. Even a successful person with a very busy mind may struggle to sleep. Sometimes you best write down all your good ideas when you wake up or before you're about to go to sleep. So then it's all saved, documented. You've got a clear mind and then you can rest, wake up for the next day. But if you're still in the process of trying to figure out something, but you just don't know, or you've got a bit of a blank mind, you're trying to figure out solutions to problems which may be controllable or may not be. Solutions to your own problems or solutions to other people's problems which aren't your fault or your issue. Rebecca, depending on her personality, and if she was caring and loyal and was protective, other people's problems could become hers, and she wants to try and find a solution, whether that links to her background, her job, her behavior in the past. It could all tie in line as like a cycle and a loop. And with Max as well and his condition, trying to figure out what could be done in like the medical area, with her having some knowledge and expertise in. Maybe not direct as in what's happened to Max, but that crossover of understanding the medical terms, the professionalism, but wanting to be a part of it, but not because of conflicts of interest and because of roles and jobs differing and no longer doing it anymore. Yeah, there could be some overlaps there. But thinking of situations and solutions more than one, it seems as if the situation with Max and the solution there is one thing, but she said many. What are the many other problems, as in her lack of work, her role in life, the situation, the relationship, the health of it, the treatment and lack of respect from others towards her, family life, pressures? There could be a lot of stuff. Did Rebecca feel worried that she was letting her family down by stepping away from her job, and she was worried of how she would be judged? I was planning a birthday for her father, the 80th birthday, hanging out with family, mum, son, it all being planned ahead, but then what? The ball dropping and thinking, what happens when there is a reunion or a get together with family and they ask, how is life, what you're up to, how's your job? And then Rebecca has to face her parents and family in the eyes that supported her from the beginning or forced her or encouraged her to do things in life. And then she says, well, I dropped it all. Would they think any less of her? Or maybe they wouldn't, but maybe instilled in Rebecca's mind, does she feel that people would think less of her? And when it comes to loved ones and familiar faces, if they ever thought less of someone, then that could really kill them inside. And it could be a deep-rooted fear that Rebecca had. So as much as she wanted to plan ahead, it's like, yeah, let's do all this. And then that realization afterwards, oh, then I'll have to face the truth. Face the truth of my life, my sacrifices, my actions, reactions. What will other people think? And that ties in with another quote later on as well. It's worth taking in mind. Talked to like I'm worthless was Rebecca's found because of the other children, how they saw Rebecca disrespected by two ex-wives. For Rebecca, being the non-biological mother, already an outsider. For Rebecca, going into a new relationship and a new environment with new family members, well, not direct by blood, but those of others, family members, you can feel like an outsider, the odd one out, the one with the less baggage, coming into an established family or a family, ex-family with a long history in some ways and baggage. So one person with less connections comes into another with more connections, good and bad, and you can feel like the odd one out, can feel a bit out of place. And even if Rebecca of a professional role, but then Jonah being a millionaire, the money situation, the status, the purpose, the value, there might be a feeling of inadequacy or a lack of an equal connection, equal relationship, or that could just be in Rebecca's mind. Who knows? And then by stepping back to be a nanny, in a way, feeling even less or less equal, possibly. Being taught to the way she was, disrespected, that can have a wearing effect. You'd hope to be welcomed into a family, welcomed by if there's already children within it, and a new relationship. You'd hope to be welcomed and accepted for who you are, background and the present and the future. But if you're disrespected, insulted, it can wear you down, but it can also feel like it pushes you away. You're like alienated from the whole inner connection, an outsider, but constantly present around people, around the boyfriend, but still feeling isolated from it and not included at times. That, you know, can be more wearing being isolated around people than being isolated and having no one. So if that is how Rebecca was treated, and by the two ex-wives of Jonah, that probably does stem back much earlier on from when Rebecca first met Jonah and so on, that it was a wearing, lasting issue, trying to find solutions to it, but also not having any ideas, being disrespected, impacting her sleep, impacting her feeling of self-worth. It doesn't always have to be a domestic situation behind closed doors. It can be amongst toxic family, toxic friends, a toxic family that's being connected to you because of what you're now a part of, can drag a person down. It could also tie in with when Rebecca says, no amount of money is worth what I'm going through. Her struggles, but also the showing of disrespect. She didn't deserve to go through that, and despite being in a rich environment with all the money, without any life worries, with money worries, she would probably rather struggle and worry with money issues than to be surrounded by money and richness and be disrespected and put down and left out and so on. So once again, reinforcing richness, money won't buy everyone happiness or buy moments and situations of happiness. That person would be willing to let go of all that for a more simple, basic, normal life, so they could actually be treated as a real person and a proper partner or a proper stepmother, whatever. But for Rebecca, could have been a push-pull in a way. Wanting to be there, wanting to be a mother to some kids, wanting to be strong for Jonah, but also being disrespected and pushed back despite trying and giving her all. When you give your all and you do the best you can and you shut down for it, that can really destroy people in a way. But then moving on, coward to face the truth, hope of a few happy years, which may never come about, pretending to be content without having kids. Now, I mentioned that there was no mention of whether Rebecca was infertile or not, whether she could have her own kids or not, unknown of. But maybe Jonah didn't want any more kids because of already having enough, or Rebecca felt it was asking for too much to have her own child and be a true mother of. And maybe Jonah said, you don't need any more children, you are already a mother, not biologically, but you're still a mother to these people, these kids. And Rebecca was like, yeah, but I want one of my own. Who knows, there could have been disagreements in relationships there, not getting what one wanted, personal needs not being met, not negotiating, breakdown in communication, no really bad behaviour or control by the other half, but maybe being dismissed at times or not listened to, they can still hurt the other person in a way. A coward to face the truth. What would make Rebecca Zahau a coward in facing what? The truth behind Max's outcome? The truth was, it was out of her control. She can't be in multiple places at once. It's not her fault. What other things would she feel to blame for? See, a person that may have had a past and gone through tough times may have got to a point where they feel that they're the common denominator and to blame for everything in life, and they internalize that irrational thought. And then anything that happens onwards in life, anything that goes wrong, they instantly blame themselves. Rebecca, though, a coward to face the truth. You know what? It could come across in a more indirect way that Rebecca is trying to convince herself to be happy, trying to be content with what she may never have of her own kid. That Rebecca has sacrificed a lot to be where she is, giving up her job, giving up her, friends, contacts to spend more time with Jonah or Jonah's kids, giving up her jobs, roles and purposes in life for the sake of starting or becoming a part of a proper family, and changing the roles and her positions, which are a drastic change emotionally and physically, possibly having more time, more quality time with people, but at the cost of losing a sense of herself, losing a part of her identity. Now, in some circumstances, like with relationships, if it was a bad relationship, a controlling one person could be ordered to do things or to do less. One half on the receiving end could be ordered to quit their job or to stay at home and not allowed to have a social life. It can get dark, it can get deep. We're not going to go too deep into that. And a person can lose the sense of themselves or their identity. They could lose their voice. So they do ever get out or escape or consider escaping, that they may not know who they are anymore, and it can be a scary time. For Rebecca, it seems more self-inflicted. Not that she's to blame, but it does feel a bit self-inflicted. But she may have felt the need to be present, the need to be more present. Now, reality of a healthy relationship is both individuals can come together, work together, and find a middle ground without losing their own selves in the process. But a healthy relationship can consist of one healthy person, the other struggling maybe with a past, coming together, halving those problems, sharing those issues, two heads together to find a solution or work around, and doing it at a steady pace. Making sure both people and the one struggling feels included in the moment. If one person is going to step up, the other person should too in other ways. If one person is going to make sacrifices, the other partner should do too. The same way or in other ways. Even if it's like making an effort to at least try to. It seems like, in a way, Rebecca Zahau gave up more on her life, on her dreams, maybe, for the sake of wanting something else or feeling that that's what was needed, a change of direction, for the sake of the family, for the sake of Jonah. Whether Jonah demanded it or not, that's unknown of, but maybe Rebecca thought that's what was needed, whether that be down to a deep-rooted culture need, feeling, or it was separate and it was an impulsive thought, an idea, which she went with, and then later realised, oh, it's probably a bad idea this, but I can't come to the realisation and accept that I made a mistake because it's too painful, or accept that she's struggling because it's too painful. So suffer in silence, keep quiet, pretend it's not happening, don't think about it, because if you don't think about it, it's not there. It is, but to them it's not. And then upon reflection, they may feel like a coward for not tackling it head on in their mindset. It seems like Rebecca made more sacrifices in a way than Jonah did. Now, of course, with Jonah being a businessman and a millionaire, probably going to be very busy. Is there a way around it? Who knows? But for a healthy relationship, there should be an effort to be there for the other person, to make time for them, and for it to be reciprocated as well. If Rebecca was willing to do that, then Did Jonah, like before Max's accident, was it successful or not? Or would the counterpoint be as an excuse? Well, busy, can't be connected, but look, you get the money, you get the time, you don't have to do anything. Is that not enough? In Rebecca's case, and just in general for people, some people will value the connection with someone over the monetary value or status, because you can build off the monetary value, status and roles and jobs. You can build off that with the support of someone. But in terms of the original connection with one another, for that original support and understanding and being heard and being remembered and being supported, good times and when there's a fall, if that's not established in the first place, the foundations are not there, meaning it's a very fragile relationship. And if it's all built off status and wealth, it can lead to high expectations, high pressure, feeling out of place, feeling alienated with one's own inner touch and their own feelings, being a person who they're not, and no safety net, no emotional safety net. High performance, high pressure, but no raw, natural support, no time out, no breaks, no quality time. You can have two successful people together in different ways in a relationship, but they could be very distant from one another physically and emotionally. Two rich people coming together, but depending on what they do, they may be very distant and not have much time together. It's a very isolating experience for one or both. Some could question, is it worth being in a relationship under those circumstances? Maybe, maybe not. For Rebecca, she gave up on things. She may have felt that she gave up on too much, and the trade-off wasn't equal to what Jonah was doing or not doing. So to try and combat that and the cost of it, did Rebecca feel like, right, got to try and convince myself everything's fine, normal, and this is just how it's meant to be, even if it's not what I really want. Decisions have already been made, it's too late now to go back on it. And then she tried convincing herself, for a few happy years, is it worth it? Interesting. Having hope for a few happy years, it's weird that. A few happy years sounds like a death sentence, that after those years of happiness, it's not going to be good. If you know it's not going to be good, then why spend those few moments of it for it to be positive? I mean, it makes sense if the person's, for example, got health issues, if they had problems and they were going to pass away, so you make the most of it up until the end. But if there's no health issues, there's no death, but there's darkness guaranteed ahead past it. Why stick around till you get to that? Unless Rebecca felt there was no way out, felt trapped. Would that be by her own actions and her own sacrifices? Went too far one way, didn't know how to come back from it. Worry and fear of what family may think of it if they thought less, and not being able to return back to family or friends to face them for it, and feeling like a coward, as what she said. One way of looking at it, in a way. And the bit, my own fault to have allowed myself to be cut off from my own life. My life does not exist. That seems to seal it in a way that what she's done, changes she's made to her life, her routines, because she wanted to or she felt the need to, who knows, encouraged or not, went too far one way and then later realised, lost a lot. Not gained enough, but lost a lot. It's like when a person becomes so committed to something or someone, they give their soul, they give their blood, their sweat, their tears, because they genuinely mean it and want it and will go as far as they can and do as much as they can for something or for someone that they love. And then when it's not reciprocated, or when the other half doesn't reciprocate or doesn't make an effort, it feels like so much energy, effort was used up for nothing, like it was a complete waste of time. That can have a massive come down effect. It can make someone feel very down, make them question their own worth if they've given and done so much and yet there was not much of a reaction back or love given. It can make the person doubt and question themselves, like, are they not enough? Have they not done enough? Are they not good enough? Are they unlovable? What's going on? When when one side makes moves, the other one does not budge. It's not equal, it's not reciprocated, it's not healthy in a relationship. So for Rebecca to make big moves in life and possibly life-changing roles, for things from the other side, the other half of the relationship, which may have not changed or moved much, is Rebecca reflecting on that regret and knowing that all that she did was out of love, care, loyalty, and being devoted for an important cause, a bigger cause in her mind, all for it to be shattered like a vase when it wasn't fulfilled by the other person or other areas in that environment. Self-reflection, regret, and realization of it's all because I'm here, all because of my actions. So I'm blaming myself, feeling bad about it. Maybe that was playing on her mind. It's not her fault, as in what she believed in at the time and what she wanted. That's normal, that's fine. When the other people don't show up and, the original person's let down and they question themselves and it may lower their confidence or worth, they may blame themselves for everything, even though it's not really their fault. But they feel like all the changes and the sacrifices were one too many and that's on her. And now she's got to just deal with it now. And there's no way around it, and that can be quite hard to swallow. There may have been a way around it, but maybe there wasn't. Cut off from my own life. Now, in some relationships where it can be controlling and dark, a person could lose friends, family, connections, roles, and jobs with others because that dark, bad partner forced them to cut ties with other people. Reducing that social circle, minimizing it, ensuring that it's just one and the other, but in a very unhealthy, controlling environment. For Rebecca, it may have not been that way, but in a self-inflicted aspect, imprisoning one's self through the false visions of a better life and a better future, which was never fully achieved, and then feeling stuck, and then blaming oneself. It can have different situations, but it can still all have that same effect of isolation and not knowing what to do or where to go. I mean, okay, Zena had the other sister on call, had connections that way, but maybe because of the age that they wouldn't have been able to understand or support much. Like when someone's of a much younger age and you're the much older person, you may not feel like you want to rely on someone much younger because it's not their problem, it's not their pressure. You don't want to pull them down with you. If it's someone that you look up to, someone who is of a highest hierarchical role, like in a family, you might reach out for some help or support, maybe. Rebecca may have not wanted to pull other people down, young, impressionable people in their lives and future. She didn't want to put a depressive effect on them, so she dealt with it in silence, but it meant it being much harder to combat. Does all this link and justify her death, though? If she wasn't gagged, if she wasn't bound or tied behind and over the balcony, and there was actually breakage in the neck, the bone, vertebrae, then I would say yes, it all links and builds up to it. And Max's accident, more so the voicemail, was the tipping point of it all. But I don't think she would have tied herself up the way she did. I don't think she would have been able to do all that and then climb over the balcony, which is much taller than her, as for certain body proportions. I don't think she would have painted on the door because her DNA wasn't on the brush either. I don't think she would have gagged herself. There'd be no need. So, not self-inflicted, but I do believe she was suffering and struggling mentally, but she never let on to it or told anyone about it. So, to put it this way, by struggling, by mentally not being right, for her, 32 years of age or so, maybe wanting to have life sorted out by now and settling down, but being able to move on and have fun, good time, not quite achieving that, not being reciprocated maybe, feeling a bit isolated, feeling a bit devalued, underappreciated and disrespected, all the money in the world but doesn't bring the happiness, and then dealing with Max, possible internal struggles of feeling like they're failing at the one thing that they tried sacrificing everything for and failing that. What use are they? yeah, it could lead to self-removal, but for Rebecca, maybe that wasn't in her mentality, in her vocabulary. So what does it mean then? Struggling that bad, struggling beyond bad in some ways, but never telling anyone, still makes a person vulnerable. And when a person is vulnerable, whether it be their decision-making impaired or their reactions, their reaction timing, their self-defense can be lowered. They can be disarmed when vulnerable. Other people can take advantage or overpower them. If anyone was present at the mansion or came and left, Rebecca may have not been in the right state of mind to protect herself the same way as if she was functional properly and healthy. So I think two different factors playing a role causing her death in that sense. I did suggest that Rebecca dealing with such grief and struggles and low self-worth that when someone's struggling that bad and they don't know a way out, they don't know how to get out of it and escape from it all, if there was a voice, the presence of another physical person present, and whispered and persuaded the only way out is that way, and convinced Rebecca to do that, or force someone to do that and stage it as self-inflicted when it was assistance or there was coercive nature to get someone to do it. Taking advantage of a vulnerable person that may not be able to think for themselves, acting as the saviour to falsely convince them this is the best way, and they follow it because they just want the pain to stop, so they follow through with it. If she was so low and vulnerable, she may have even conceded, submitted, surrendered to being tied up and gagged. When someone's that far gone, they may not question, they may not resist, they may just allow it. You know what I'm saying? Two people could have played a role, but mainly one was in control, the other was vulnerable and taken advantage of. With her long-standing struggles and from the notes undated, it would reinforce that. Note on the door, she saved him. Maybe Max, can you save her? Save her from her own demons, her own struggles. But too late, because it was already set up. That's the way it could come across. Now, was there anything else to mention? I don't think so. You can leave some comments down below. All I would say is, when it comes to Rebecca and when it comes to autopsy, how I said, there was no medication, there was no psychological issues, there was no struggles by Rebecca previous. But that's the thing. Experts, professionals, people in the mental health field, hospitals and all the data, the records, may not have any knowledge of history and struggles with Rebecca if it was never reported in the first place, or it never came to a crisis or a form of intervention. If Rebecca hid it from everyone rather well, or she wasn't even aware of her struggles and issues until it was too late, how would anyone know if they've not been told? And in a situation where Rebecca didn't even know herself, how would she know or know when to get help? So if it never got to that point of getting help or anything, there's no previous data or records of history of long-standing psychological issues. So there is that. The only other factor to acknowledge is, to some extent, the dismissive tone by Rebecca's family. If Rebecca was found the way she was, but she wasn't bound or gagged, and she was just over the balcony, would the family accept it was self-inflicted, or would they still deny it? Because of the cultural issues, the feeling of deep shame and guilt that it brings upon that family, if that does exist. So would they accept it but secretly cover it up and try and treat it as something else because they can't come round to acceptance of Rebecca would do that to herself, and put family and friends through that outcome? They would say it's selfish or it's disrespectful, it's dishonouring. Who knows? Some people can be very harsh towards people that may take extreme action when they feel it's the only way out. Worth taking in mind. Of course, the evidence and the lack of evidence, that doesn't quite make sense, and no touch-based DNA by Adam, even though he said that he did this and that to save her, or to try to, is questionable. But the, what do you call it, the dogged nature and the strong-minded will of believing it to be a particular cause of death by Rebecca's family, could there be a form of a self-defense mechanism of denial, not wanting, not able to admit or consider the possibilities it's something else because of either the cultural issues or just the deep pain that it would bring upon them? Just like if Rebecca was unable to come to acceptance of certain things and felt a coward for that, if that's being instilled by family and, being brought up, other family members may have that in different ways, and that's why they reacted the way they did to Rebecca's death. It's worth considering. People can be strong, people can be hard-faced, people can have an exterior and a shield. It doesn't make them more of a good person or less of a good person, but it does deny the real, true inner self of that said individual, struggling or not. And when linking it back to a relationship from the other half's perspective, and I will word this as an internal monologue under the Rebecca Zahau situation, but I will convert it as a vague, generalized perspective, but also, in my opinion, as well, with what I believe in. Channeling the internal monologue, it would come across as, in the presence of another partner, in the presence of a girlfriend, in that sense, it would be, I don't love you for the positive, bubbly self that you are. I love you for the darkness and the raw ruggedness of what's really going on behind that exterior. Even if it's dark, I would choose that over that false light that you provide to try and pretend everything is fine and okay to make everyone else happy when you yourself aren't. I want you to be happy and be at ease without the pressure and the mask being worn all the time. I look beyond the performance and try and seek the real person within. That's the mindset that humans should have. Did Rebecca get that by Jonah? Maybe not. That would be unfortunate. But it seems like there's a lot of different issues, deep-rooted, played a role, a mechanism in making her vulnerable, more susceptible to stress and struggles, and Mac's outcome was the defining moment and the breaking point for her. Then whatever happened, happened. And the resilience, but also the resistance and the defense mechanisms of some may deny them of being able to see it in a different light. That's why cases like this can be very sensitive and touchy, which creates a conflict of interest and an emotional biasness. That's why at times you've got to try and cut that and look at it with the full perspective. And if any of you did or see it in other ways, you're more than welcome to share it down below in the comment section. But we'll leave it there for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Good night for now.